I have a lot of colloquialisms in my books, and I'm just not sure useless as tits on a boar hog is going to translate good.
Welcome to the Two Authors Chat Show, an entertaining podcast with two best-selling authors connecting readers with an eclectic array of distinguished guests through lively conversation and interviews. Hosted by mystery, suspense and thriller writers Douglas Pratt and Nicholas Harvey.
Hello and welcome to the show, everybody. Doug, how are you doing?
I'm good, sir. How are you doing?
Peachy, enjoying the Keys. Yeah, although it's been storming like every night here, but the days have been okay. Actually, today is beautiful outside.
That's the thought matters. It can rain all night. You can go swimming and diving in the daytime.
If I didn't have to work, I would.
That's true. Working. But hey, let's start off today with a listener question.
Come on.
You feel up to it? Okay. Well, this is from Alex Turner from all the way from Seattle, Washington.
That's Dee Black country, huh?
Yeah, Dee Black. Maybe that's where we get him from, yeah. If you could step into one of the scenes from your book and experience it firsthand, which scene would you choose and why?
Well, Nora takes a shower in her outside shower.
You're ready to say, what sex scenes have I written in the...
I don't write sex scenes, really, but Nora's stands around naked in a little shack because it's like in the middle of nowhere overlooking the water. So that's pretty perv of me right there. That's pretty perv.
It was a little bit. It's already bad enough that you kind of created her.
I know. And I write in first person, so in theory, I'm looking at myself naked.
Like,
that's weird. That's really weird. Okay.
I've lost interest now.
Yeah. I don't care what you say now. You've weirded it out. Queen of the Island Skies, which is book number 5, I think, in the AJ series. There's a technical deep diving scene, and seeing as I'm into the tech diving at the moment, where AJ dives on this airplane wreck on a pinnacle 50 miles offshore of the Cayman Islands, and or Grand Cayman. And it's pretty hardcore diving on a cool airplane wreck. So that would be kind of cool to be doing that. If not, I write a lot of dual timelines, right? So like Anchor Point, there was a whole pirate.
Oh yeah, that's
pirate side story and going on. And the first book, 12 Mile Bank, was World War II submarine, and then her grandfather telling her the stories about it. So one of those, maybe dropping back in time. I could drop in and check out what's going on in the pirate times. But you know what? That always sounds so glamorous. But you know what? Everything was smelly. There was no running
they
water,
didn't have
showers.
Any teeth. Yeah.
I mean,
scurvy everywhere.
Yeah, we'd probably be like, oh, it's just really smelly here. I want to go home.
Even the ladies and stuff, they're going to have like all the pockmarked and whatnot. It's crazy. The guys have no teeth. I don't know.
What, the women have dentists?
I'd like to think that they have better teeth. I don't know.
But they've got pockmarks.
They got pockmarks. But there's
you are digging a hole. How about you? What would you drop into?
Apparently one where I could go back in time and not talk about women with pockmarks, I guess. So, actually, I think a lot of the stuff that I've written about, either I've done something similar, so it's not like, except for the killing people.
I was going to say, you shoot a lot of people?
I don't shoot a lot of people, but I've got no real great desire to do that. But I think like Havana Sunrise, I think I didn't get a chance to go to Cuba to kind of research. I did all that research online, which was a lot of fun to do. It really made me want to go. So I think I would love to, pop in there and see get a chance to explore without the Russians chasing me and trying to kill me. But, just have a Cuban sandwich.
Yeah, that kills the tourist vibe when you've got some Russians chasing you around trying to kill you. We were lucky enough that we got to go to Cuba a few years back, and I actually full James Bonded it when I went there. So unnecessarily, because I didn't really have to do that, but we combined it with a trip to Cozumel, Mexico. So we flew to Mexico and then flew from there to Cuba, but I flew to Mexico on my US passport and then flew to Cuba on my British passport. So I was full James.
Very sneaky.
Yeah.
All right.
Cheryl did it all on an American passport. I had no issues. So I didn't need to be doing it. I just wanted to do it.
You just wanted to do it. So did you have you didn't have a martini shaken, not stirred while you were there?
I had a really good rum drink in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like a Cuba Libre.
Yeah, I did. Havana was amazing. We spent way too little time there because we were diving in Garden of the Queens, which is off the southern coast. And we were on Liverpool dive boat down there. So we only spent a really small amount of time in Havana. We literally ran around downtown Havana, kind of taking in as much as we could, and went in one of the old American car taxis and all that kind of thing. But it's a beautiful city. It's really cool. So I'd love to spend more time there.
We could do us a missing in Cuba.
Missing in Cuba.
Oh, we got a few laid out. We could jump on one of those.
Yeah. Cool. All right, let's move on to our guest. So this episode guest is a romantic comedy writer, indie publishing consultant, a podcast host, and she's a
professional podcast.
Yeah, not into this crap. She actually does a real one. And she's a lovely lady. It's Jami Albright, everyone.
Welcome to the show, Jami. How are you doing today?
I am great. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Better for seeing you.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your career right now, how you got to where you are.
Well, I actually didn't start writing until I was 50. I started...
You don't look 50, first
I was going to say, so that's in 5 years' time. You're a time traveler.
Stop it. Actually, I was really more like 47 when I started writing. I was going to write a book for my best friend for her birthday. But I'd never written before. I'd always made up stories, but I have terrible grammar, so I never wrote anything down. But then I thought, well, Jennifer doesn't care if I have bad grammar, and we were reading buddies, so she would think it's funny. So I started writing a book and pretty quickly wrote myself in a corner. But so I told her, I was going to write you a book for your birthday, but I don't know how. So there. And she's like, oh, no, now you have to. So we loosely plotted what is my first book now. And I read a lot, but I did not know how to write. So I actually bought Writing Romance for Dummies, and it was surprisingly good. I mean, knowing what I know now, that's a pretty good book if you need a place to start. But I wrote on it for a while, had about 30,000 words, and then my computer crashed, and I was like, well, I'm not a writer. It's sad, but I lost.
Did you lose it all? You lost a lot?
I lost everything on the computer.
Oh,
an old computer.
That hurts. That hurts so bad.
It did hurt, but, I just went on with my life, and then I turned 50, and I was having dinner with my family, and I said, I think the only thing I regret in 50 years is not finishing that book. And of course, they were like, well, you should just finish it. And I'm like, no, I'm not starting again. That was too hard. And a few months later, my daughter came in and said, Mom, I think your book is on this flash drive that I just found in my drawer. And it was 20,000 words of the 50,000 words that I had. I'd forgotten I'd saved it, but I'd saved it. So I was like, well, it's now or never. And I joined RWA, and I started going to a critique group, which there are a lot of things that are said about critique groups, but I will say I was so, so fortunate. I mean, they were great people who were really good writers, and they taught me to write in 6 months. I mean, it was a mess. I didn't really know anything. I knew I didn't know anything, and that helped me, I think, because I went... And I mean, they got me for everything. I'd get hit for run-on sentences. Then I'd get hit for sentence fragments. The week they did the week when I thought I'd fixed the run-on sentences, but then I had sentence fragments. I did cry, but I waited till I got in the car. But yeah, I mean, it was embarrassing. But they kept saying, but this is a good story. I want to know what happens next. So, and I kept fixing what they were correcting, deep POV and stuff like that. So 6 months after I started that critique group, I won my first contest with that book.
Oh, wow.
It was a Romance Writers of America contest. And it was just the first, I don't know how many pages, but some number of pages. And it was the final judge was the editor of a small press, and he wanted the book. And I was like, well, I'm still, putting the final touches on it. The truth was those pages were about the only thing I had that was worth reading. And, but thank God, because I would have given him that book instead of self-publishing. And so I just continued on. I put out a book under a different name with my critique partner. It's just a little novella, but we put it out, and, we're like, okay, who's going to read our book? And then, of course, no one does because we just threw it up there. And that began my journey of how do you find readers? Like, how do you get visibility on Amazon or wherever? And I started listening to podcasts. Someone told me about the Sell More Book Show podcast, which I started listening to, but they were talking about the SPP guys, the self-publishing podcast guys. At that time, that was 2000, the end of 2015. They were doing crazy things like writing a book from conception to publication in a month. At the time, nobody else really was doing that, or if they were, it wasn't common knowledge. It wasn't common practice. And they were going to have a conference in Austin, and I live in Houston, and so it's just 2.5 hours away. I used to live in Austin, so I had people I could stay with. And I told my husband, I said, I think I should go to this. And he was like, that's great. Like, that's $500. Where are you going to get that $500? Like, it's okay. It's fine, but we got to come up with $500. And it was right before Christmas, and I had 2 kids in college. And I was like, you're right. I probably should just wait until the book comes out. So we went to Christmas, came home. I had an email from them saying who was going to be at this conference. The Smarter Artist Summit was what it was called. And Julia Kent was going to be there. I'd never heard of Julia, but she wrote romantic comedy, which is what I write. And it was just my sign from God that I was supposed to go to this thing. So I returned all my Christmas presents. I got a mileage check. There was a mileage check waiting for me when I got home from my family's house at Christmas. And so that's how I paid for the conference. And it was the best $500 I've ever spent in my whole life, because I was going to put that book out, and they really encouraged me to wait. They encouraged me to wait till I had 3 books. Well, I don't write fast, so I had 1.5. But they also encouraged me to learn the business, and I did. So I spent a year just learning the business. I didn't really have the money, that I needed, even at that time, to get a good cover and good editing. So that gave me time to figure something out. I sold plasma to pay for my edits and the other expenses. Because then by the time I was about to put the book out, my daughter had gotten engaged. So now we're paying for college and a wedding. And so I did that. And then I put it out right before the second Smarter Artist Summit, which was April of 2017 is when I put the first book out. And because of everything that I had learned in that year, I had learned about building an email list. I built the email list beforehand. So I had 1,200 people on my list before the book came out. And that book did incredibly well and continued to do incredibly well. Like, it stayed in the top 5,000. Well, it launched to 1,300, and then it stayed in the top 5,000 for, I don't know, more than a year. And
wow.
The other books just launched better than each one of that. Yeah, I mean, it really, that first series just was a huge success. And it really kind of put my name out there for people. And that was in 2017. And so I'm still chugging along.
That was a good time to be getting into it too.
Yeah,
that was right kind of at the tail of the
it was
golden...
the tail of the gold rush. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I haven't put a book out in 2 years this month, 2 years this month. But that's, my sister passed away last year. And so, but she was sick. Like at the beginning of last year, I knew that things were not good. And it was just, I couldn't write. And then for the last 6 months of her life, I stayed with her and was with her every day, except for just a few. And that's only because of indie publishing that I was able to do that. So I'm so grateful, because I was still making money during that time, which was great. But I'm about to start writing again. So I'm feeling good about that. Yeah.
So you can truly say you put blood, sweat, and tears into that first book.
I have.
You sold the blood.
I've sold the blood. I've sweated and I've cried a lot.
So I got to ask you this. So I read on your website, your tagline is sexy, swoony, pee your pants funny. I about peed my pants when I read that. I got to tell you, that is brilliant. That is the best tagline ever. So I was going to ask you what a reader should expect from your books, but that kind of sums it up, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah.
That's my brand right there. Sexy, swoony, pee your pants funny.
So in what measures?
So I would have said, before TikTok, I would have said my books were like a 3 on the chili pepper scale, 1 to 5. But after TikTok, mine are probably not a 3. They're less than a 3. But I mean, they're still, the Bride's books are still sexy. I mean, they have sex on the page. But my second series, my Small Town Royalty series, are probably a little hotter than those, a little spicier. And then funny, I mean, they're just all funny. They're just funny. I mean, I'm funny. I mean, or I think
you're funny. I think you're funny. Now, you have, I know you have a daughter. How many kids do you have?
I have 3. I have a son, and then I have 2 daughters. Yeah. And then I have 6 grandkids.
Oh, my gosh. Now,
Ooh.
How old are the grandkids? Because that's an even better...
10, 5, 5, 4, 3, 3.
Okay, so that problem's coming down the road here. But you've got 3 kids, and you write these sex scenes. Do your kids read your books?
No, they don't. They don't read books.
Have they ever?
No. Well, I think that the youngest one, she hasn't read it, but one of her friends read it and read her some of the things that were in my book. And then she came in and told me I was nasty, which is ridiculous because I'm not.
That's funny.
That's a good praise for her too. Like, if my kids came in and said, "Hey, you're being dirty," I'm like, "Yeah, I am."
I'm just picturing that. Your daughter's walking in and going, "Mom, I just read your book."
Yeah, no, they haven't read them. My mother reads them and she loves them. And this is what she said. We were on a cruise, she and I was in the pool and she was sitting on the side reading one of my books. It was the one that had just come out. And somebody said, "What's your mom reading?" And I said, "Well, it's one of my books. I'm a writer." And so we got to talking about it. And my mom from across the pool yells, "It's so good. You should read all of them." But I'll tell you right now, she's put everything in there I've ever heard of, if you know what I mean. But, again, on the chili pepper scale, according to TikTok, not too steamy, but I think they're steamy enough.
Quick question for you about steaminess. I'm curious because my books probably, if there's a steamy scale, they were like a half. So how do you go about writing sex on the page like that so that your mom's like, "Hey, that's awesome"?
I think the key is finding your readers because there's such a broad spectrum of readers. There are readers that would read my book and be really disappointed. There are also readers that would read my book and be scandalized. So you kind of have to find your reader. And I'm really fortunate that I think because I was older, maybe I had honed in on who my reader was before I started writing or before I published, not before I started writing. So I know what they like. I know who that reader is and I know what they like. Also, I write what I'm comfortable writing. And as I've written more sex, I'm a little more comfortable writing sex. In the beginning, I was not super comfortable. And it's still the last thing I write. It's still, I'll send it to my editor and say, sex scene. And that's all that's there. There's no sex scene. It's one of the last things I write. If I could write the kind of books I want to write without sex, I might do that. But I know the genre expectations. I know the reader expectations. And I don't want to disappoint them. So I try to do it as best I can,
Well, by your sales, I think it's going okay. Yeah, you're doing great.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
I was going to say sex scenes with all of my readers for me would be there. I would disappoint everybody. They'd be like, it's sex with Doug.
That was it?
Yeah.
That was it. That was it. It's a very quick scene. It's very fast. We're done over. Sometimes I just end it in the middle of the paragraph and don't even finish the paragraph.
Okay. Moving on. So you're a busy lady. So you've got, obviously you're going to get back to writing here. You've had a lot of family commitments, but family is a big part of what you do. You do consulting and you're podcasting. How do you balance all of that? How do you plan your weeks? Do you set a balance of all that stuff or does it just all roll on?
It's real long. I mean, I'm a seat of my pants person from beginning to end. I wish, I see people with these quarterly calendars, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that I get imposter syndrome when I see those things because I don't do that. It might help.
Who has those? I don't know anybody that has those. Do you, Doug?
I only know one person that has those, and Nick's a little anal. He has lots of those. So.
I'm not.
I'm not either. I'm the opposite of that, and it drives Nick up a fucking wall.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, hey, Sarah, do we have a podcast today? Like, I haven't even looked at the calendar, but I have gotten better about looking at the calendar before I reach out to her. She doesn't get mad, but I'm embarrassed. So I have tried to get better at that. I always say about our podcast that the only reason I can do it is because I have a podcast wife. Sarah is amazing, and she really enjoys the back end stuff of the podcast, and I'm more a front end person. So it works out for us, but I just make it work. I mean, this year has been weird because I haven't been writing, so I've had a lot of time, but in the past, I would have to schedule my writing around recording because after recording, because we try to do ours in the afternoons too, and I'm out of that headspace once I do a podcast.
I like that term, your podcast wife. I think now it's Doug as my podcast wife.
Absolutely. I mean, the good-looking one and the one that's not organized. Yeah, so I guess that works out both. Although my wife actually is organized. So.
She is.
She has to be married to me, otherwise we would never get anywhere on time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So yeah, you were just at NINC with us.
I was.
So that was what kind of takeaways did you get from there? What was your big?
Mine were more the mental health stuff, just finding joy in writing again. And I will tell you, and I tell anybody who'll listen, is that comparison really has or did steal the joy from me because I wanted, I was doing super well, especially when you consider how many books I put out and how I was putting them out like 9 months to a year apart, but keeping my income consistent through that with ads and stuff. I started looking around at people around me. And I remember at NINC in 2019 telling Damon, if I could just be happy with how I did things and not try to do what everybody else did, I would be super content. But I just couldn't let that go, looking at other people, thinking I needed to do this or that. And it really stole the joy, and it really kind of sucked some of the momentum out of me. So at NINC this year, I really am, because I haven't written, for a while, I am trying to come back at this from a healthier point of view, a healthier mindset, and just doing my thing.
It's a great community, isn't it, with the writers? That's one of the things that I've been to a couple of times now, and I get something from the presentations for sure, but I get just as much from the talking with people outside of the presentations, meeting new authors, and that camaraderie and what have you. And it's really strong, I think.
I think that just getting that camaraderie helps us with that comparison, worry about comparing each other, because it's a struggle when you have that imposter syndrome. We all do, where you're like, I can't believe I get to do this. First of all, that's kind of great. But then why am I not doing it as well as Nick Harvey? I mean, he has that cool accent and I have a nice Southern accent, which isn't, so we have to compare those all the time. So, but no, it really is. I think it does help us because we do see like that we're all out there. We're all struggling with the same thing. And I think that goes with any real industry you're in, whether it's writing or, if we were working at McDonald's, we'd probably have the same issues.
We get emails a lot. We get emails for the podcast, but also just from my writing, from my readers about that I'm real, because I just tell what's going on. I have no filter. I'm an oversharer from way back, and there's no, I'm 60 years old. I'm not going to stop now. And so, but I think that's helped a lot of people because most people only talk about the good things. Most people only talk about the successes and not necessarily the struggles. And even for my readers, there have been instances in my life that I have actually put into my books that are hard. They're not good things. And I've learned from them. And if they can help somebody else, then that's great.
Let's touch on one thing that I know is incredibly. Obviously, you lost your sister, but you also lost your nephew through a very sad set of circumstances. And I know that's something that's very important to you to talk about a little bit. Can you share with us what took place?
So my book, Homecoming King, is about he's a football player. And the initial thought when I was going to start writing it was he was going to be a recovering addict. Well, I got a little bit into it and realized, addiction's not funny. So I changed it. He was injured and trying to stay off of opioids and stuff like that. Because, besides opioids being an epidemic in our country, they're a huge epidemic in professional sports and probably collegiate sports as well. But, because in professional sports, if you don't play, you don't get paid. And somebody else will take your spot and, all this stuff. So that was the thought of that book. Well, just as I'd started that book, my nephew died from an overdose. It was Xanax laced with fentanyl. And he was a casual user. He had a good job. He was productive. He was 33 years old. He was doing well. Casual user, and took fentanyl-laced Xanax, which I have written about on my website, the story, but I don't think I put the fentanyl in there because at the time my sister didn't really want that out there, because he was one of the first fentanyl deaths in Dallas, we found out. And so it has become more prevalent. She's spoken about it. We're speaking more openly about it. And then also my cousin, who played for the NFL for 10 years, became addicted to opioids. And he's been clean for 14 years, but it was awful. It was just awful. And with my nephew, we didn't really say anything, we didn't want to upset him. We didn't want to alienate him. We just thought we could love him out of it. And the fact is we couldn't. We should have said something. All of us should have said more. And we didn't. And unfortunately, he took one pill and it was laced with fentanyl and he died. Yeah.
That's devastating.
It was devastating. Yeah. Yeah.
Now there's a helpline that you promote, is there not?
Yeah. On my website, you can go to my website and it's under something personal. And it is a website that my cousin was working with at the time. And you can call that number. And if you need help or need somebody to talk to, or just if you're a family member and need help knowing how to deal with this, you can call. It's so important.
It affects everybody. It's amazing. Pretty much you talk to anybody and they will have some connection in some way to someone who's gone through something like that. So we'll put the link in the show notes so people see it. All right, so let's lighten it up. You have a Portuguese translation.
I do have a Portuguese translation.
Why on earth, out of all the translations in the whole world, are you big in Brazil? What's the deal?
I'm not big in Brazil, but I'm okay in Brazil. They reached out to me and I was like, sure, I'll do a Portuguese translation, and the contract was pretty good. After I think it's 7 years, I get it back.
Gotcha.
I get the translation back, and so it was a pretty good deal. I don't really have any other translations because I don't really want to go with another publisher.
Right.
They've been fine, but I know the benefits of doing it myself, but also see unorganized before in our conversation. I haven't gotten myself together enough to do it. And then what's happened over the last year, I haven't done anything. So, yeah.
It's a lot more work to do it, too. Because I've done mine in German, and I don't speak German, so how do you know that it's even right? You could have it proofread 100 times, and I can't tell. So, yeah. So it's a challenge.
We both did German translations about the same time for some of our books, and it definitely is. It's not as easy as it would seem.
No, people make it sound like it's easy. It's not easy.
That's not easy. No, it really was. I thought it'd be to find somebody to do it, and then I'm like, man, no, it's really not, because you're starting over in a whole other country So it's like having 1 or 2 books out here. It was,
It's ground zero.
I mean, it's not just that. It's ad copy. It's blurb. I mean, it's everything. You've got to do it all. I have a lot of colloquialisms in my books, and I'm just not sure useless as tits on a boar hog is going to translate good.
All right. Any German listeners out there who can translate useless as tits on a boar hog for us, we would like to.
Yes. So,
we'd like to have that.
Yeah. That's been my thing. I'm just not sure small town Texas is going to be a real draw. In the Brazil books, one review was, I translate, it was in Portuguese, so I translated it, and it said, in the beginning of Running from a Rock Star, she's a small town Sunday school teacher, and she wakes up naked and spooning with the baddest rock star in the business, and they're married. And so she runs, but she can't find her underwear, and he calls them sensible. So granny panties, and
nice, yeah.
So, but in the review, it said the panties of the granny is
in the translation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. The panties of the granny.
Yeah.
But
like he finds her underwear, and she's written her name in them because she wore them to the church retreat and didn't want to lose them. And he follows her back to Texas, and
that's a very Southern thing too, right there. Like I have a feeling Nick doesn't get that at all. Like we go to the church retreat, you don't want to lose your.
I think we just hit sexy, swoony, and pee your pants funny, right? In the same, in one scene, right there.
Yeah, one scene.
That's what you get.
That's what you get. Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So you're back in the saddle. You're going to be writing again. Have you set again a target, or are you when you might have something out, or are you trying to go about it relaxed?
On one hand, if I know I have a deadline, I will procrastinate to that deadline. And right. But it also kind of makes me shut down a little bit. But I'm going to write a book that is a little off-brand. It'll still be funny. I say that it's if Steel Magnolias and Terms of Endearment had a baby, and then let that baby watch a lot of Dukes of Hazzard, that's what this book would be.
That's a visual right there.
It is. It's a good pitch.
I just saw Bette Midler in a red car flying through the air over a bridge.
Yeah, so I'm going to work on that one, but I have no timeline for that one. And it's just something I'm going to work on. It's a little personal, and it's going to be emotional. It'll be a little sad, but it will be funny. It will still be funny, and it'll still have a good ending. And then I have a rom-com that I had started before I stopped writing. Really, I think I stopped writing in March of last year, because by March we knew some things were not good, and it just derailed me. I mean, I don't know. People who can write, like people who wrote 10 books in 2020, I am so jealous of those people, because that's how they cope with hard things. I do not cope with hard things that way. I just sort of sit and stare off into space, or try to go into action to fix things, and that's what I did with my sister. I just was really trying to help in any way I could. And that didn't leave any time for writing. But as I've said a million times, I do not regret one word that I didn't write in 2022.
Well, that's good to hear. And I'm sure your fans cannot wait for you to put something out, but no pressure.
They've been great. I will say my readers have been so awesome, and that's awesome.
All right, Doug, get out the wheel.
We have our wheel of questions.
The wheel.
So I have our wheel, and so let me.
No one actually believes it exists until he see it. Yeah.
So here we go. Oh, here we go.
Oh, he just wrecked it. See, he broke it again.
He just wrecked it. Oh,
we're doing audio. Just smacking it against the mic.
Okay. What was the worst job you've ever had?
I did medical records in a hospital one summer during college. Oh my gosh. I really thought I would slip my wrist before the summer was over. It was the worst job. It was so boring.
Were you filing all those files with the little color codes on the side of them? Those things?
I was filing them. We had to enter them in the computer. We weren't allowed to talk. It was, oh my gosh, it was awful. It was awful.
It was just so that toxic. Tap, 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 tap,
yeah.
tap, 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 tap.
It was just toxic. You know, those women had been there a long time, and they hated each other, and then they hated I mean, it was just, it was the worst.
So it comes in like,
yeah, it was bad. I mean, it's not very sexy, but that was the worst job I ever had.
Oh, if it's sexy, it wouldn't be the worst job you ever had, would it?
Yeah, I wish I did something like getting pigs, but I never did that. So.
Jamie, thank you so much for coming on and joining us. This has been a real pleasure.
This has been fun.
Good luck with the writing coming up, and I'm sure you're going to slay it, and it'll be another bestseller.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jami Albright. That was lovely. Isn't she a super lady? And gosh, what she's been through the last couple of years. My gosh, powerful stuff.
Brilliant. She was awesome. She's just very powerful, very inspiring, really. So,
all right. So, what have you been up to, Dougie Doug?
Oh, wow. Since I've seen you?
All of 2 weeks ago.
All of 2 weeks ago. Yeah, not much. Well, I did start a refresher course for my scuba diving.
Good man.
Yeah. I got certified when I was 10 years old, way back in 1984. And in fact, I still have the junior certification card that says junior certification.
That's pretty cool.
So I never updated it because I always just kept diving and just never updated it. So then we really hadn't dove much in the last 10 years. So I kind of needed a refresher. And they're like, that's not going to work. So I put Ashley and my two oldest kids are kind of doing the class with us. So they're fun. Taking the class to get certified. Yeah. So
nice.
How about you, sir? What you been up to?
I had my dive event this past weekend, which was really cool. I was nervous. I didn't tell you going into it. You don't know what to expect, right? But the weather was good. The diving conditions were great. Public divers, Ashley there and her crew really did an outstanding job. And
awesome.
We made it.
Great.
Oh my God. We made it to all the wrecks. I've got so many pictures I still haven't gone through. I've got videos I haven't gone through yet. I haven't had time to. But it was superb. Great conditions. Got to all the wrecks. Everyone had a superb time. Big thank you to the to sponsors, Sheer Water and Cayman Spirits. Very happy people went away with bottles of 7 Fathoms rum.
I saw that too.
A Sheer Water dive computer, which they are killer dive computers. Someone won one of those. We had a bunch of other swag. My friends at Reef Smart had some dive books and cards. We put these swag bags together. I think I mentioned the last show, a dust jacket book of wrecks of Key Largo, which was really fun to have.
Our next guest coming up in a few weeks will be Armand Rosamilia, who's a fellow tropical author.
He is a great guy. I love spending time with Armand.
He's a little bit dry-witted. He's going to...
A little bit?
You know.
He's very dry-witted.
It's a good thing we don't have that emergency button. We don't mind a few F-bombs or something like that, because he's going to...
He's a prolific writer, too. He does...
my God.
When he tells me what he does in a week, it's like, okay, I can't do that. He writes so much. He's all over the place.
Yeah, he does horror. He writes some horror, writes some mysteries, writes... and tropical thrillers. He's everywhere, and he's a great writer. So
good guy. Yeah. I can't wait to chat with him on the show. Please remember to subscribe to the show through the platform you listen to. Give us a 5-star review if you would.
Please, yes. And also, don't forget, check out the show notes for links that we talked about with Jamie here, and about the website that she does with her cousin, and also her books as well. But check out our social media and anything else that we have that we've talked about. We'll usually throw in there some links and stuff. So maybe Nick will throw a picture of him on the wreck from underwater.
Yeah, well, you follow me on Facebook pretty soon, and when I get my shit together, I'll get some videos up there of some of the underwater stuff. So, but until then, be cool to each other.
Fair winds and following seas.
You've been listening to the Two Authors Chat Show with Nicholas Harvey and Douglas Pratt.